Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to thank everyone who's joining us via Oz Arab Media and listening to Oz Arab Radio. Joining us today is Carol Ferrone, star of Back in Time for Dinner, and what I believe to be a suspected time traveler with us today.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Mrs. Ferrone also serves as the ambassador for Food Bank Australia and as a business coach, and is serving on the jury of the AIM Business Awards for the Oz Arab Media Gala to be held on the 19th of May this month. Without further ado, Mrs. Ferrone, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, but please call me Carol because Mrs. Ferrone is my mother-in-law's name.
Carol it is. To start us off, I want to ask, just to be clear, what year are we in?
I do believe it is 2023, but according to my television show, I'm about 200 years old. So, not looking too badly, if I do say so myself.
200 years old. Okay, so I'll chuck out my 1962 calendar because that is at the same time too old but too young.
Yeah, no, I've been around since the 1850s. So
1850s. Well, you don't
know a bit about history.
All right. Well, then, what would you say? What decade defines you the most? Would it be the 1850s?
No. Look, it's an interesting question, one that I get asked a lot. I won't say it defines me, but I think I'm going to say the 1970s. Number one, it is the decade of my birth, so I am giving away my age. But also, look, apart from the fact that the fashion and the music, fabulous. Those safari suits, very, very comfortable. But also, I think because the 1970s really were, I guess, a turning point for women and feminism and women's liberation. Like women were marching out of the kitchen into the workforce, into, I guess, formal education. I mean, not to say that women before then weren't attending university, because they were. And I know I don't want women to be writing in and saying, my grandmother was going to uni before then. But it really was a turning point for women. And especially in our show, which, I will be plugging along the way. I can't help it because I do love it. But the 70s really was a turning point for women. And I guess it showed young women and young girls that you don't just have to be a wife and mother. You can by choice. There is nothing wrong with that. I do have a husband and children. It is an honourable profession. But it really was a turning point for women, the 1970s. And also, I guess, the family structure and children. A lot of children became latchkey kids because suddenly their mums weren't at home just cooking and cleaning. They're in the workforce. And I particularly can relate to that because my mum was a working mum. So I was leaving the house, an empty house, and coming home to an empty home. And we actually did highlight that in the show. And I could relate to that because that was my childhood. So I'm going to say the 1970s.
That's incredible. So it sounds like not only, obviously, as you mentioned, the fashion, the music, etc., is what you love, but it was an entire decade that defines your character now, your personality and your outlook on life.
I think so. Yeah. Like, look, I do love disco music. I won't lie to you. But yeah, like I really do think it was a really big turning point, not only, like I said, for myself. Well, I mean, it's when I was born, but just for women as a whole. Like there were some pretty ballsy women in those decades. They really changed things for women.
Any specific woman that you look up to? Or could be personal or famous?
Look, apart from my mum, who was I'm privileged that she's still around. She's cruising the Pacific as we speak. She was a hardworking woman out of necessity, an immigrant. But look, no one in particular, really. The 70s really, it was just a generation of women that broke out of the mold of, we're just here to serve our husbands. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm all about equality, respect and equality.
I can understand that.
Yeah.
For those who haven't seen Back in Time for Dinner, why should viewers watch it besides to see our favorite star in action?
Oh, look, this is my favorite question. So, look, for me, look, it's the three E's. It's educational, it's engaging, and it's entertaining. Look, we have 3 seasons of a very highly rating, fabulous show. And look, it's all about what we do is we teach Australian history in a way that is relatable. Like we we always hear our elders or the older generations say, and I do this all the time with my kids. Back in my day, we used to do this, or you don't know how lucky you are today to have this modern technology. I say this to my kids all the time. Now you have Google, whereas in my day, we did our assignments with encyclopedias, for example, and it's funny because I do a lot of talks and I do a lot of keynotes on this very subject. And I say, imagine you could jump in a time machine and literally go back in time and live in those decades, be it the 70s, the 1900s, the 1800s. I've done that. My family has literally done that. We 3 times now, for 3 months at a time, we gave up all our modern luxuries, all our modern technology, and we have lived in those decades. The only difference is, and what the audience or some of the audience don't understand, the trolls don't understand. Our show is unscripted. So we don't, even though I'm a history buff and I do know quite a lot about history, we don't know what each day brings. So we might know today is 1962, but I went to school 30 years ago. I can't remember exactly. So we don't know, but we live through Australian history as it happened, as the average Australian family, but with the knowledge of today. So for example, in 1950, when I spent 8 hours in the kitchen as the average Australian mum, bawling my eyes out because it's hard. I'm crying because I'm tired and I'm frustrated because I know that in 2020, I have this box called a washing machine that I can put my clothes in, press a button, and then go have lunch with my friends because when I come back, my clothes will be washed. Whereas in the 1950s, I'm doing it by hand. So it's that juxtaposition of living in the past with the knowledge of the future. Now, most of the time we approach each day with humor and laughter and us being us. So it is quite fun, but in the same sense, a lot of the times it's frustrating. But, I think the audience appreciates that. They relate to us. It's a lot of fun. We get to meet so many great Australian celebrities and personalities. And if that is not my plug to watch our show, I don't know what is. But look, our latest season, which just finished airing, but you can stream all 3 seasons on ABC iView. We actually ran a corner shop from 1850 to the present. And for me, it was great because I am a business coach. I don't really practice as much now, but being able to run a business, a small business from the 1800s to the present. And I knew what was coming. I know the struggle of small businesses today, but to watch how it started and be that pillar of this small community. And, I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it. And the community of Botany, which is where our corner shop was, really embraced us as real shopkeepers. And we actually ran the business. We sold goods. We exchanged money, albeit it was shillings and pounds and pence, which was such a mind-boggling thing. Thank God my son is a genius to work all of that out. But, to go through that process, not only as a shopkeeper, but as a business coach and struggle with marketing and it's a great show. And yeah.
So was it this want to experience life without modern technology for yourself and for your children that inspired you to go back in time?
Look, for me, I think what inspired me is, look, I'm a history buff and I'm also a foodie. Like, we are a family of foodies. We love to cook. For us, I always use the term, and not to make it a religious thing at all, but for me, if you go back to the Last Supper with Jesus, and he broke bread. Jesus always broke bread, whether it was with criminals or with friends or with anybody, right? And to me, if you break bread with somebody, you show love, you break down barriers. So for me, when we were presented with this opportunity, not only to learn history as well as food and the evolution of food, for me, it was like winning the lottery, really. Like, my two great loves, apart from business and marketing, and that's more of a career thing. Like, to me, honestly, it was the chance of a lifetime. Like, I have literally walked in the shoes of a woman from 200 years ago almost. Like, it's amazing. Like, it's really given me such a respect for the people that have paved the way for generations of today. Like, I sent my son to war. Now, obviously I didn't, but that moment in 1914 when, and I strongly recommend that you watch that episode in Further Back in Time for Dinner. I think it's episode 2, the 1910s episode. My son was 19 at the time, and he wore an original Anzac uniform. And, I was, fixing his tie and his shirt. I can't, like, tears are streaming down my face. Like, I felt that moment of that mother. Like, I'm getting emotional thinking about it, sending her son off to war. And I think my words were, promise your mum you will come back. Oh my gosh, I'm getting upset. And I know for a fact from all the letters and emails and comments on social media that every mother that watched that scene cried along with me. And I've been to the Logies twice because of it. Like, the respect that I have, and mothers today send their sons and daughters to war, in the Ukraine and all the rubbish that's going on around us, unfortunately. Like, the fact that I get to tell, and my family get to tell these stories, is, I am so blessed. Like, I can't, and also we get to teach our food culture. If I said to you, Joseph, what's Italian food? You'll say to me, pasta. What's
Pizza.
Chinese food? It's so weird. If I say to you, what is Australian food? It's hard to define. Why? Because we're a multicultural society. Season 1 of our whole show goes through immigration in Australia and how, in the 50s, the Italians and Greeks, what they contributed to our dining tables. It is Back in Time for Dinner. And then as we go through in the 70s, I think, or maybe the 80s, when the Vietnamese came, and then, when the Arab, the Middle Eastern people came to Australia, and how today, now you go into a Chinese restaurant, or actually last Saturday night, my family went to a Lebanese restaurant in Greenacre, and you don't see all Middle Eastern people. You see Italians and Greeks, and you see Indians. I love that. I love that so much, because that's the nation that we live in. We're in this multicultural country, and our show taught the audience how, like, why? Because of immigration and what they brought. Like, did you know that in the 1950s, you bought olive oil in the pharmacy?
I did not know that, actually.
Yes.
Oh.
Because up until then, it was seen as this weird pharmaceutical thing. Like, it's just, yeah.
For medicine or for just?
Well, it was something that the Europeans, I think in the 1950s, brought to Australia. And they just thought it was this odd ingredient, and let's just put it in the pharmacy for now until we figure it out what it is. Even
Figure out what to do with it.
garlic was so foreign to, the Anglo-Saxons, predominantly English, obviously, that, garlic was foreign. We didn't have bok choy on our tables till 20 or 30 years ago. So, yeah.
You spoke obviously passionately about food and how you're interested in its evolution. Would you say your passion for food throughout time could be connected to the work you do with Food Bank Australia?
Yeah, like that's interesting. So how that came about in series 1, I actually went to Food Bank. And so for those people that don't know, Food Bank is not actually a charity. Food Bank Australia it's kind of the national pantry. So all the major food suppliers who are absolutely amazing, including the large supermarket chains, so your Woolworths, your Coles, to name a couple, donate food to Food Bank, as well as the big suppliers. Then Food Bank, they act as, I guess, like a wholesaler. They then distribute to all the charities. Anyway, I went to Food Bank as part of the show, and I was doing a tour, and the gentleman that was giving me a tour actually said to me, "Who do you think our biggest clients are?" Now, when they use the word client because, it's a kind semantics, but it's a kind way of saying the food recipients. And, I naturally said the homeless, the elderly, the mentally ill. And he said to me, "Carol, you're actually wrong. Our clients that we service the most, or at the time, are people like yourself, people with nice homes, nice cars, have a family, but suddenly somebody loses their job and you're faced with, do you pay your mortgage or your rent or food on the table? And of course, you want to keep the roof over your head, right? So food is the last thing." And that really hit me. And I thought, we live in the lucky country. How are people not being able to eat in this country? This is Australia. We're not in a third world country. Anyway, that really hit me. I'm on camera crying my eyes out. Later on, the CEO reached out to me and said, "Look, I love your empathy. I'd really love you to be a brand ambassador." So that's how, that came about. And of course, I did not hesitate at all. Every single day, at least 500,000 Australians struggle to put one meal on the table, or a meal on the table, every single day. Again, we live in Australia. I don't even know how that's possible. Well, I do at the moment because, inflation and rising interest rates and everything. But I really, I struggle to think about that, but Food Bank does great things, and they've got a program in schools where they provide free breakfast for children in, lower socioeconomic areas. So they're out there doing amazing things, which is great. Our children need to have a full belly so they can learn, and yeah.
I agree. I also mentioned at the beginning that you are a business coach. How does a business coach end up on a national TV series that isn't exactly related to business per se?
Well, it's interesting that I didn't choose it, it chose me, or chose us. I don't know if you actually know how that happened, but long story short, I've actually done television before. But long story short, my family was out at the shops. Somebody, actually, backstory. Warner Brothers Television are the production company that make our show, and we go to air on ABC TV. 9,000 families had applied for the show. They hadn't found the right family. They hadn't found us yet. We're at the shops, so they put some casting agents literally out on foot on the streets. We're at the shops. Somebody tapped me on the shoulder and said, "I like the look of you guys. Are you interested in auditioning?" And we thought, yeah, why not? Or I thought, yeah, why not? And I copied the rest of the family into it. And me being a coach and a confidence trainer and everything, I just kind of trained the family and whatever. So that's kind of a long story short. But yeah, look, I guess, like I said before, the best thing about it is, apart from business, I see myself in particular as being a storyteller and, ultimately being a vehicle to being able to share people's stories and, stories of the past as well as the present. So, yeah.
As if your resume wasn't impressive enough, you're also a jury member of the AIM Business Awards 2023. What encouraged you to accept this role?
Oh, look, for me, it's quite simple, and look, I love business, and I love entrepreneurs. Excuse me one second.
Sorry.
And I guess with my business and business coaching background, like my family's been in business for over 30 years now, I know the importance of not only showcasing, but also awarding excellence in business and in the community. I think, yeah, in short, yeah.
What kind of business did your family work in?
Oh goodness, businesses. So my husband,
Businesses, I apologize.
gosh, yeah, no. So I've run my own business coaching business for a few
Yeah.
years now. My husband's family had an importing and wholesaling giftware and jewelry business for 42 years. My husband had a very busy city cafe, and now he's in the building business. He actually does renovations. So, and he's had that for about 4 years. So, yeah, we're quite entrepreneurial. So he does, yeah, he does renovations, but we've also done property development. We do a lot. We do a lot. If I told you my own personal resume, you actually wouldn't believe me. But I'm very busy.
A family of many talents.
Yes, yes.
So, as a jury member, what exactly are you looking for, and who you'd vote for the winner?
Look, I think for me, it's not about who has the biggest brand or who's making the most money, because I've seen some amazing small businesses that have been, run by 2 or 3 people. For me, it's about who's using their business to celebrate diversity and promote shared values in our multicultural society. Are they striving for inclusion and equity in their business when it comes to hiring associates, for example? It's a hot topic, equity and equality. And I'm not going to say too much because it can be a bit controversial. Sometimes things are about ticking boxes. I don't know how I do know how I feel about that. And again, I'm not going to say too much. I'm not so much about ticking boxes. I'm about choosing the right people, not only in business, but I guess in life. And I'm looking at businesses that choose the right people, not only for the job, but according to their values and their brand values. And when looking at the candidates for each of the awards, do they stand by their values and their mission statement when it comes to their business practices? Do you know what I mean? I find a lot of people in business say things and put things out, but are are they really standing by that, if that makes sense? Do you know what I mean? Or are they just ticking boxes because they need to? That's the difference between equality and equity, and that's what I'm personally looking for. So yeah.
And that's how you and your family have run your various businesses in the past, with that frame of thought?
100%. Yeah. Like one thing I can truly say is, look, I personally believe in giving everybody a go. Like anybody that knows me personally, that has worked with me, particularly in television, knows that I will treat the CEO of the company exactly the same way as I treat the cleaner. In fact, in my coaching business, I always advise the business owners. One of the questions I always say is, who's the most important person in your business? And they always say, oh, the CEO or me, I'm the business owner, or my general manager. And I always say, no. The most important person in your business is your cleaner, or who you might perceive as, the lower end stuff. And the reason is because they're the people at the ground level. They're the people listening, or perhaps your receptionist, because that's the person who greets your clients when they walk in. I'm a big believer in, and I don't like to use the words the people at the bottom, because that's disrespectful. I don't mean to, but I'm a big believer in, I've lost my train of thought now, but seeing how people treat, or how businesses treat the people at the bottom, for want of a better word, because
I understand.
or the people starting out, and what the pathways are for them. Because I believe if you treat people well, then they will be loyal to you and loyal to your brand. Because there's nothing worse than your employees speaking badly about your brand or your CEO or whatever. And anyway, I'm digressing, but that's what I'm looking for anyway.
You also spoke earlier about multicultural businesses. Is there anything specific you would say that makes them successful, besides just, as you said, checking boxes, not just equity or equality?
I think so. Look, for me, it's, and I did write this down because I do think it's important. For me, it's twofold. Number one, It's got to serve, and I do believe this is number one, it's got to serve the needs of its employees by encouraging an inclusive and supportive culture. Because if you don't have that, I don't believe you have a business. I do think first and foremost, you have to serve your employees. I know the old cliche, the customer is always right, the customer comes first. I actually think you need to take care of your staff first, because then they will take care of your customer. And secondly, in any organization, again, you have to serve the needs of your customers. So, otherwise your business, or, even if it's a charity or an organization, even nonprofits like charities or professional associations, they'll go insolvent. So, you've got to provide value to your clients, your members, your donors, whoever. So first and foremost, inclusivity, employees, and then customers. So I think those are the keys to success.
To conclude, is there a message you'd like to give to your fans and followers?
Oh, look, apart from the obvious, you can stream series 1, 2, and 3 of the Back in Time series on ABC iView. But look, apart from that, look, I live my life with a motto, and it's 2 words, and it's just be nice. I always say that on day 1 of coaching and day 1 on set of filming, and it has served me well. In life, if we are fortunate people say life is short. I think that if we're fortunate and we're healthy, life is long. And if we make mistakes, if we're humble, we get to correct those mistakes. And I say to people all the time, just be nice, whether it's in business or life. So yeah, and vote for my Logie. I've been twice. I want to win this year. I think you deserve it.
Well, I wish you the best of luck in that.
Thank you.
And on behalf of the Oz Arab Media team, I'd like to thank you, Carol, for joining us today, and to all the viewers and listeners. We look forward to seeing you at the gala on the 19th this month. For those who have also booked a ticket, we also look forward to seeing you too. And for those who haven't, it's not too late, and we'd like to see you there as well.
Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. Take care and God bless.
Thank you.